because I got to ask you about that one later.
Yeah. So you still had to have game mouthpiece, but I think the advantage was to the men. And so when you look at where women are, they don't want to go back to that because you can have a rotation. You can cheat on her. You can cheat on her without knowing, like that type of stuff. But that was the 90s. You still could get a girl, and the girl would want to be with you. But of course, if she was good looking, extremely good looking, monetized, they were looked upon as the whole over there. Yeah, like they kind of out there. Yeah, there were girls still with the. I lived in Los Angeles, so Southern Cal. So we still had the Lakers, the Raiders, the Rams. Everybody was out there. At the end of the day, it was only a small percentage of girls that were doing that type of lifestyle.
Got it.
Most women by 24, they was packing it in.
Okay.
They packing it in. They like, okay, have my fun, but now it's trying to pack it in. 24, 25.
So it was odd to run into single women at 25 years old.
If they weren't, they was going to be single for a long time. They still had single mothers.
Okay.
It wasn't every woman, but
would it be fair to say 25 in the 90s is the equivalent to like maybe a 38-year-old today?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So now
that's how society looked at her.
Yeah,
like you're a spinster now, basically. Spent 25.
At 24, 25. Like if you're not trying to get serious and get a relationship, you go missing women.
Gotcha.
Income. Was that a big factor as well?
In terms of,
like, for example, average income 50K.
Oh yeah, nobody was making 100K. I mean, 200K is equivalent to 300 or 400,000 today.
Yeah.
We're making 100K in the 80s and 90s.
That's doctor money.
That's doctor money. You doctor lawyer.
Yeah. 60s and 90s is doctor money.
Yeah, nobody, many dudes were doing that. And if you were, you had a wife, the women was going surrounded with you. You had a wife and you had a family and kids. Yeah. They used to call them yuppies. Yuppies. They had BMW.
It's a very,
1980. So if you made 100K, you were a yuppie. Yeah, especially if you were young. But I would say, dude, I'm telling you, man, boomers they didn't make 100K until they were in their 50s or 60s. So they grinded it out, making 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, right? But then you go to the 2000s, right? So you get to the
before we get to the 2000s, because I have some more questions on the 90s, because I want to really break this down by decade, because this is rare where you get someone that lived through all these decades.
Yeah.
That has a retro lens. So would you say that the game, right, the dating marketplace back then, since men had to approach, did women actually value those approaches more than they do now?
I think they appreciated them more because if you weren't approaching, the woman gets nothing. If she didn't accept an approach, she was cooked. Now, you still would get shouted down and you ain't ish, that type of thing. But I think if you said something to a woman, like we used to stand on the bridge in college, you know what I mean? And we used to stand there, you know what I mean? And the girls would just walk by all day and everybody you getting something. All the comments were flowing.
Right.
And so the women knew it. They was going to cross that bridge. So if they didn't cross that bridge, they wasn't going to be seen. But at the same time, did they like it? They might not have liked it, but you still wasn't going to be seen. See, in the 90s, there was no way for the woman to get anything outside a social circle or approaching you. Nightclub, the woman had to be seen. If she was sitting at the house in rollers,
nobody would know.
Nobody sees her. So you want a husband, you want a boyfriend, you want to be seen, you got to go outside.
Got it. So there was a bit of impetus on the women because, right, they get a bunch of attention today. So they don't need to leave the house.
They don't need.
Right? They get all the validation they need. So they had to actually step outside to get attention back then in the 90s. And you're saying that they would appreciate that approach a bit more.
It was appreciated.
Versus
approaching them was the expectation.
Yeah. Versus nowadays, a lot of the times if you're not a Chad, she's annoyed.
Right.
I've always said that I think modern women look at men as mosquitoes. Like, what the man? Like, get off! I got my attention for the day. I'm tired of it.
Exactly. They're annoyed by it because I think 80% of men are invisible to them.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas we will probably have sex with 80% of the women.
Absolutely.
Right. So
I would argue it's now 90 to 95% are invisible now. I'd say.
Yeah, some women don't either they know that and don't care, or they don't realize it.
Yeah, so nowadays, you know what they can do beforehand? Research. Oh, what's this guy?
True.
What's he about? Look at Instagram, look at social media. Oh, it's popping. I was on this damn. I was like,
exactly.
It's like, this isn't.
Yeah, exactly. So you would have to demonstrate something of quality for her to be like, maybe a car, maybe a lifestyle. So I always tell guys, I'm not a big cold approach guy, especially today because of those issues. However, if I'm at the top floor or an area of Caesar's Palace that she knows you have to be somebody to be there, then she's going to probably be more a better recipient of a cola pro.
Yeah, of course.
But if I'm at the valet, if I'm at the valet, she's probably going to be because my car was rolling up the valet. Now all of a sudden they have been, but of course, without that, without that knowledge, you're just a regular guy. But especially for young black men, they all put us in the same category. So you ain't, from the start, until they see something.
Okay, so the 90s, all right, so that's that very interesting dynamic. So the main takeaway, 24-year-old woman is basically the equivalent of a 38-year-old woman today.
Correct.
Women actually valued approach more, and they had to go outside to get anything.
Right.
And they appreciated it more.
Guys, by the way, the video is almost like 4K watching much on YouTube. And Coach, where can I find you as well? Just for
you can find me. Coach Rick Adams is the big main channel, and Free Agent Lifestyle is the other channel. So that's the cool. Let me add one more thing on this. So church was a big deal. So they went to church.
Hallelujah.
So they went to church. So you can find a woman, you can find a God-fearing woman in church. So it was like women had today, women will be hoes and go to church.
Right. Party on Saturday.
Now they did have that back then, but you can still find a woman. If a woman's in church, she might be intentional.
So the church was a more viable way to meet a chick.
Yeah,
matchmaker.
Okay,
yes.
Really.
It will match you up.
So nowadays, it's
have that back then, but you can still find a woman. If a woman's in church, she might be intentional.
So the church was a more viable way to meet a chick.
Yeah,
matchmaker.
Okay,
yes.
Really.
It will match you up.
So nowadays, it's a joke, but back then, you're saying it was viable.
Oh, it was expected that people more went to church back then. If you didn't, they called you a heathen. So you could find a woman in church, and a woman wasn't pretty much done. Like if she was a single mother and under 30, she could find a guy.
Okay.
Whereas today, guys ain't trying to mess with it. Nothing stops, Brad. That means we deliver knockouts. Heavy DAs.
Let me ask you this. Okay, how did they look at single motherhood back then in the 90s?
It was like, oh, you poor girl, you princess warrior, you do it all by yourself. That guy.
Also, they still were championing it.
Well, they would be like, you got taken advantage of. Some guy did something to you to that point where that he left and left you out there hanging. So I'm gonna come in and fix that.
Was that only in the church or outside as well?
Outside. Yeah, outside. Single mothers didn't have a negative reputation like that.
Because the only reason I asked that is this is a weird connection, but I'll never forget Ted Bundy's mom. She was raising him. She raised him in a home for women that don't have, and basically bastard children. Because it was like something that was very shameful. Like you couldn't be out in society as a woman without.
That was the 90s.
So in the 90s, that's kind of not stigmatized anymore.
They had less stigma that she was out here.
Okay.
That she was out here doing.
Yeah, because the people in the 60s, bro, it was a problem. Like they didn't want them outside. Like you don't have a husband and you have a kid. They had shelters for them.
Let me tell you what. Let me tell you. Shame is real. So we don't have shame anymore. Back
so in the 90s, the shame had evaporated.
It was starting to evaporate. Where guys could look at a woman and say, she got 2 kids. That's a good woman still. She's in church. She's focused. I think I can make something of that. So dudes will make families out of that.
Yeah. Scary. The other thing I was promiscuity. How was it viewed in the 90s?
Listen, this is what people have to understand. Promiscuity has always been viewed bad for me, just like today, like these 304s. But promiscuity, the reason why it hurt women back in the 90s was because women didn't have a reach like they have today. So a woman had a 10, 12 mile radius. People like the cars that we have today, we could just be like, we're going to drive 400 miles. Like, we didn't do that in the 90s, you know what I mean? That was like a trek. So, especially for a romantic relationship in the 80s and 90s, nobody's driving 300 miles, flying out here and there. An airline flight was like, 500, 600. It was expensive. So dudes weren't flying girls in. You weren't going to just fly out on a whim to go meet somebody. So your radius is right here. Your high school and the 5 rival high schools, your college campus, maybe the rival college if it's close. And that was your circle. Friendships matter. People would set people up. Hey, my friend Tony want to talk to you. That's how people got together. So that if she was a 304 with that group of people, she cooked. Cooked. So then if I date her, the odds that somebody dated her in that radius is high. Where today the woman could go, oh, she all over here and come back to you and you don't know nothing.
To your point, nowadays, coach, women can travel from China,
yeah,
to America,
easy
with no type of background.
Yeah, you know,
the area codes have changed. So you're right, 100%.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just they had a limited market and they had a limited time because they only have these people right here.
So basically, women were more reluctant to engage sexually because they understood that there would be serious social consequences due to a more constrained environment.
If I when I was in college, I started dating this girl. My whole boy was like, "Oh, I banged her in the bushes that fast. She was good."
Yeah.
And you might have thought maybe because she went to the high school over here, oh, nobody will allow her.
They don't enjoy the same anonymity.
They don't have the so now they can move it a little bit with different space and come out here and say, "Hey, I'm holier than now." It's like they already. Yeah.
All right, let me ask this then, and then we'll go to the 2000s. Obviously, early 90s, you're 18, 1993. At this point, it was going mainstream, right? With obviously Snoop, and you're on the West Coast. Snoop Dogg, Tupac, etc.
Yeah.
Violent gangster music, as well as all, they're talking about women as well,
Yes.
and having sex and all this other stuff. How did that play into the culture? Did it affect the black community more? Were white people listening to it too, and also engaging in it? How did that affect? Because they didn't look at hip hop as music back then.
Hip hop didn't become what we know of it today till about '92, right? Now it was a thing in the late '70s and '80s. It was a thing, but it wasn't respected. It was kind of like that's gonna be phased out. Nobody gonna listen to that.
Gotcha.
Well, right when gangster rap came in, which I call the time bomb of the black community, that was a time bomb. It was kind of almost worse than the crack era. Okay, where let me tell you, in the '90s, you start hearing women say they wanted to openly date guys like Dr. Dre, Snoop, Tupac. Like they were their boyfriends. Like before that, they didn't want guys like this. These guys were off limits. Like gangbangers were a small group of people.
Yeah.
Today, everybody a gangbanger or a drug dealer or a pimp. Like these guys were the lowest of the low.
So are you saying the early '90s kind of ushered in this era of girls getting with crooks?
Yes. Let me tell you where. I'm gonna tell you how. There were a couple of songs that changed the trajectory of how women dated. Now, women have always liked bad boys. Always.
Yeah, of course.
Always liked bad boys. But they had a reputation to protect. So they can't just be out here with bad boys like that. Not openly. They can't just be out here with a rapper. That was immediately a stain on her. So what will happen is they had songs. They had a song by MC Lyte, Roughneck. All right. For the young people, go look it up. Once Roughneck hit, game changer. And the song was, I gotta have a roughneck. He gotta be rough. He gotta be, Timberland boots, baggy jeans. Before that, women weren't openly dating roughnecks, but that image started to become popular. Wu-Tang Clan, dude with the one pants leg up. I'm trying to bring to back. So those guys became the ideal guy because rap became mainstream. And white people were part of it too. Without white people, there's no rap.
Yeah,
there's no hip hop.
They're the ones that actually play it.
They buy it.
They're bootlegging, bro. Yeah, they're bootlegging. Like, come on, man. Yeah, wire. Yeah. Start giving you because they give you the CD and it's all thin and it has a little paper thing. It's bootleg.
Yeah, they go back bootleg. Yeah, say dub it. So we get the DJ Quick. They dub that. I give him a tape and he just copy. So the industry is overwhelmingly the consumer.
Yeah, they're the actual ones paying for it.
Yes, when a guy went platinum in the '90s, rapper, it was white people. Yeah, it was white people. It wasn't black people. So
you ain't going platinum.
Yeah. So and the industry was proof of that too. You can't go big without that. You gotta have a crossover.
Yeah. What I will say is, in the black culture, when they support something heavily, what happens is people will say, "Oh, that's cool now." Right, and they go buy after.
So black community has to.
Yes.
Yeah, they have to.
So you need to pay for black people 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that's just to give it the credentials. But then the white people are the ones that
they take it like NWA straight out of Compton.
They're gonna pay for the concerts versus the white people.
Yeah, overwhelmingly it's white people who bought that out.
But they don't think it's cool until we think it's cool.
Right. So white people. Yeah. That was the first. I believe it was the first album that went platinum.
You can celebrate everything.
So when straight out of Compton, because I'm in the cities, I live in the city and moved to the suburbs. White people love NWA. They love Public Enemy. They love these fringe rebellious bands.
Yeah.
And those bands were on labels. I ain't gonna get my hair started. But
you guys know the sound effect.
Yeah, those bands were promoted. They weren't underground type bands, so they got pushed forward. Run DMC, these were all white people supporting groups, Beastie Boys. So that's the only way you would go platinum. But back then, so Roughneck came out. Then after that, there was another song that I tell my audience that came out in the 90s that changed the way women can openly date the bad boy. But what happened was, what happened to the men? The men started to adopt this bad boy characteristic. They started to dress like gangbangers and thugs and bandanas, you know what I mean? They started to wear the Timberland boots, the baggy pants. So the men said, oh, the women are going to date those guys that I'm going to become that guy. And a lot of dudes probably in jail right now over thugging to try to get some girl. Yeah. Right. So that's when dating started to change in terms of women openly dating guys like that. So that's mid 90s going into the late 90s.
Okay.
Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need for the 90s. So basically the last thing I'll say is, so you would say early gangster rap was what created this ideology of dating thugs and made it okay, socially acceptable.
Made it okay.
Girls, it used to be you have a thug boyfriend, you kept it from everybody, you didn't tell them. But now, after NWA, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre's, Tupac, etc., now it's to date a thug.
Yeah,
and publicly do it.
Publicly, they walking down the street with them, and everybody's like, he ain't gonna be no good for you, right? So this is the whole conversation about who's the victim in single motherhood, is the woman or the man? Well, the woman openly chose these type of guys. Oh, so they want to blame the guys. Well, he didn't take care of the girl. He didn't take care of the kids. But like, those women openly dated those guys.
Okay, so this is okay. This you just said something really profound. So two things happened in the 90s. From what I'm hearing from you, the commercialization and acceptance of dating.
That's what I call it.
Yeah, right. Like guys that, quite frankly, are not going to be able to do good providers, right? Right. Then, due to them accepting this, the acceptance of single motherhood from dating was
exactly because they can still be the victim at that point. Oh, these guys don't take care of their kids, but they openly dated those type of guys or guys that became those guys.
So it's a two-part situation. Now it's acceptable to date thugs.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we're also going to accept the fact that they might get you pregnant and leave you. And we're going to support you.
Yeah, we're going to support you. You poor lady, these guys ain't. Tell you. No Scrubs. There you go. So No Scrubs goes into that was the 90s. So that was the other song. Yeah. So you had No Scrubs and Roughneck. That was the 90s. So women can openly say, can I take it back for a second?
Yeah, please, man. Yeah, it's that time.
There was a time where for women, like today, they listen to rap. They be in the club to the window, to the wall. They be in the club rapping. Yeah, they be rapping. And all the reasons women, they be out here rapping the worst lyrics. Yeah. And they'll dance and shake to it. Let me tell you, man, that's new. Women didn't listen to rap like that. They didn't sing the raunchiest stuff in the early 90s. They weren't like, hey, we like this raunchy ass rap. They were like, this disrespects women. This makes us look bad. Really? Y'all talking about your mama. I'm not a hoe. Where today, these women at Future concert, they doing the raunchiest, and then they want you to be a gentleman, right? Or they'll date those guys openly. So women didn't listen to rap like that. But I think TLC was a more hip hop R&B group. Like the rapper was Left Eyes. You started seeing groups mix.
Yeah, she was rapping. Yep, she was.
Before R&B was distinct.
Because she couldn't sing.
Yeah, she couldn't sing. So they started to mix hip hop and rap so that then they could put out this No Scrubs and the women and men can hear it.
You know what's funny? When I hear Chris Brown, these hoes ain't loyal, and they sing along, and I'm like, but that's you though.
Right.
That's you.
Exactly right. They're singing that along with that. Yeah, but they'll do that. They'll sing along to the music now, but say, well, that's different. Right? They'll twerk to it, they'll dance, all that. But that all transpired in the 90s. Once you start the 90s, you started to see more.
Listen, Coach. I know you're Coach Greg. Yeah. I know you're Chef Greg.
Yeah.
Right now. Cooking.
All right. Cooking.
So, all right, we just covered the 90s. Okay, so now we're going into the 2000s.
2000. So R&B started to kind of make a comeback. I credit Diddy for this.
Okay.
Fortunately, so he started to bring rap into R&B virtue. R&B was dying. All these Luther Vandross and all these Patti LaBelle's, they phased out. But then you started seeing Well, Jagged Edge. You started seeing more of these groups come back. I'm sure they'll play your. I'm sure. So they started to come back to the hip hop flavor. R&B came back. Diddy was behind a lot of these bands, so was Jermaine Dupri and ish like that. So now what happened is there was still an emphasis on getting married. Like I got married in the 2000s, right? There's still an emphasis on getting married. So what you would see is people more or less still go out there and want to do the club thing,